Well, hello, our viewers and listeners to CHP Talks. We're here with a very exciting report from the front, from the CHP National Triennial Convention in Calgary, Alberta. And I am about to speak with Mr. Marc Slingerland. He has been the plenary chair the last 2.5 days at the CHP convention. I am not at the convention. I am up in my riding in northern British Columbia, but I wanted to have Marc tell us a little bit. I know there's been a lot of activity, especially in the policy resolutions that have taken place there, and I think we're just going to touch on a few items. But Marc, first of all, thanks for joining us. Thanks for being there. Thanks for being the plenary chair. And by the way, for those who do not know, Marc is a long-time CHP member. He's been a candidate a number of times. He's active in the leadership of the Christian Heritage Party in the Lethbridge area, and he is the very successful, hardworking principal of Calvin Christian School in Coalhurst. If you don't know where Coalhurst is, it's near Lethbridge. If you don't know where Lethbridge is, you got to get out a map. So, all right. Well, Marc, thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule there to update us a little bit. So what's a highlight for you so far? What's taken place at the CHP convention?
Hi, Rod. It's been a great convention. It's the one drawback is that you're not here. That really is too bad.
Yeah.
You know what? Lethbridge is 2 hours from Calgary. It's not too far a drive. For you to drive down quickly would be a little tough, but it's been a great few days here. We just wrapped up a wonderful speaker after 5 sessions of plenary. We had a record-breaking number of policies brought forward to this convention, and we actually managed to consider every one of them. I didn't believe that was going to happen, but we had a lot of people work to make that possible. And yes, we hit a lot of really good ones. You've been working behind the scenes, Rod, on departments, so different areas of bringing in experts, bringing in CHP members with background in different areas, and having them go through our current policies, revise them to make them better, and add new policies that bring even better solutions for Canada and returning Canada to its biblical foundation. So we've been able to cover that in a number of different areas. The one that we brought forward from Lethbridge is dear and near to my heart, very topical in Canada right now, is the question of conversion therapy. You know that Bill C6
Yes.
passed the House, didn't make it through the Senate, thankfully, before the election. But that push to ban conversion therapy, and then not only coercive therapy that is imposed on people against their will, but the definition of conversion therapy that's being used is, well, an unscientific one, first of all, but it's so broad that, you know, parents could be criminalized for speaking with their children, trying to get them help for unwanted sexual attractions. It's devastating to many lives already, and yeah, such a chill on free speech and on families showing care and love for their children. So we did address 2 policies to deal with that we oppose coercive conversion therapy, but need to defend the rights of consenting adults to seek counseling of their choice, and also for parents to continue to get that help for their children. So that was a good discussion about exactly how that should be worded and how to bring it forward, but that's one of the policies that we got passed here.
Yeah, well, thank you. That sounds like an excellent one. Yes, as you were explaining, I'll just sort of lay it out for the folks. Several years ago, we started a department or a committee, which we called the Departments Committee, and now is called the Policy Committee. And the work of that committee, we have 12 departments within that committee. There's agriculture, Indigenous affairs, there's economics and finance, health and education, life and family, and a number of others. So those departments have been working behind the scenes and then bringing their ideas together to the policy committee. which then submitted them to the resolutions committee to be presented to the delegates at the convention. And it sounds like all that went through and was effective. And
It's been amazing. You know what, the work that's been done, just the level. I've been to a number of conventions now, and the level of detail and the polish that's in the policies, and then it's just not only a one-off, but you know, what are the other policies that it impacts? What are the other areas of public policy that we need to consider? It's been phenomenal.
So you mentioned before we began recording a couple of other areas that were dealt with. The science and technology is a rather new department for us in terms of formalizing it into our policy book. So was there anything particular about that that was put forward by the Science and Technology Committee that you wanted to speak to?
Sure, yes. So it wasn't only a new policy, but actually a whole new section in our policy handbook. That doesn't happen very often.
Right.
So big round of applause in the room, of course, when we got that done. But we had a workshop actually to introduce it, because it is some new ideas and things that maybe aren't familiar to everyone who was here even. The section on science and technology, I would say the two main areas there we're dealing with artificial intelligence and the threat of that, the definition of humanity, right? That human life, personhood is something that's unique to humans, consistent with our pro-life ethic. And so reaffirming that, limits on artificial intelligence, recognizing that it does have useful applications, but that we really need to be attuned to possible dangers, especially in dehumanizing effects. Yeah. And maybe related to that in the value of people and their free choices. The second main area there was to do with data, information, privacy. So rights, for instance, to own your own data, your medical data, but also surveillance data, that would be limited, and that it can be used against you, that you have a right to know what companies, what government, what corporations are tracking about you. And for instance, if you would switch ISPs, internet service providers, that the backups and all of the data that they have on you, they can't keep that, sell that to somebody without your permission. It's your data, you own it. And so we have some very, very strong policy language around data portability and rights for individual Canadians. No.
And that can't be probably anything much more important right now with the government's threat to impose, and they're acting in regard to imposing vaccine passports. They want to track your medical history, your medical decisions. They want to punish or reward you based on your medical decisions. So we're at a really critical time. I'm so glad that was looked at in this convention. And then the fair tax, as you mentioned to me earlier, like we already had support within the party from previous conventions for the concept of a fair tax, but you addressed, the convention addressed some of the issues around the implementation of a fair tax. And for our audience who are not aware what a fair tax is, it's talked about a lot more in the States than it is in Canada, but Christian Heritage Party has been talking about it for a number of years, and the fair tax would ultimately replace the personal income tax with a universal tax on new purchases, right? A purchase of new goods. So anything you would like to sort of lay out about what was discussed in regard to the fair tax?
Well, the idea again, right? That's there. I've defended that on the campaign trail. I think it's one of our strongest economic policies. That idea that, well, one of our principles is that we should support government by fair taxation, right? That government has a role to play, and as citizens, we owe them support to make sure that they can continue that role in serving us. But the idea of income tax, which was introduced as a temporary measure in the world wars, right? And well, it's still around. The idea that what you make belongs to the government first, and then what they allow you to keep, you can use as you need, as you see fit. Well, in fact, the products of your labor belong to you, right? And that's there to care for your family, to donate to charity, to care for your community. And so that fair tax on consumption, which you can then control and choose rather than off the top of your income. And so if that's adopted, of course, that has lots of other ramifications for other pieces of economic policy. There's lots of things that depend on income tax right now, even your income tax receding, right? So we had a policy still that talked about how information would be provided along with income tax receipts. Well, those won't exist anymore. And so that policy had to be changed. So there it was more doing the maybe a little bit boring. I quite like the policy, but a lot of people find that a dry piece of politics, but it's really important, right? You have this great idea. How does that actually work in practice? How does that filter through to other policies? And so that there were probably 8 or 9 different policies that had something to do with taxation that have been revised and improved in line with that main policy on the fair tax.
Well, thank you. That's tremendous. And I won't keep you away from the things you need to do in the next little while. I know there's still activities going on this evening. In fact,
we have a fully packed schedule, absolutely.
Yeah. So, but I do appreciate you taking the time, Mark, to share some of this with our listeners, and we hope the rest of the convention goes swimmingly, and that you all have safe travels home, having done the work of the Lord and the Christian Heritage Party triennial convention. So thanks very much. God bless you.
Thank you, Rod. It's a pleasure to see you, and we look forward to hearing you as you give the leaders' address tonight, even remotely. We've lots of great stories and great speakers, and I know that you will continue to put these policies forward as well for Canada and ultimately for God's glory.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for the work, and to our listeners, tune in again next week for another edition of CHP Talks. Thank you.